Very good morning, everyone. Charles here, FRGNT Daily Chart Analysis. Wednesday, the 8th of July, 2026, and the time has just ticked past 7:15 local time here in Milan. I figured I would do a quick breakdown of DXY and US dollar CAD, a position that I took on Monday and held overnight through to Tuesday and took profit in the latter stages of yesterday afternoon. So as always, DXY top-down analysis, I am always looking to use the DXY as the highest degree of confluence, as I always mention that it's a catalyst when trading across pairs such as US dollar CAD. So of course, if I'm looking to short the US dollar CAD, I have to find a sensible position in the market where I foresee that there could well be a turnaround on the DXY. So DXY higher time frame, as a result of most recent week candlestick behaviors, I am anticipating continued longer term on the DXY. However, as I always mention, what goes up will more than likely come down, and it's down to us as traders to identify that position in the market after a higher high has been created, for that higher low, for then the potential higher high continuation. So as you can see by the weekly time frame top right hand chart, you can see how we have closed above most recent highs, and illustrated by the green, you can see how we were clearly making higher highs and higher lows, as I've just spoken about on that weekly time frame. So once we've then made that higher high, my anticipation, particularly because I'm looking to short the US dollar CAD, I'm looking to refine an area down in the market where I foresee a turnaround. So first and foremost, is there anything on the weekly time frame? Not particularly. We have well traded and entered within this higher time frame weekly order block. To the left hand side, if I make it slightly larger, you'll begin to understand why higher time frame wise I am looking for a particular turnaround, and here would be a good place to do so, despite price tapping into that higher time frame weekly order block a couple times over. However, the higher we get into that higher time frame weekly order block, particularly as we enter towards the mid section of the GAM box, that is where I am starting to have a good look at the DXY to understand that. However, I don't trade from higher time frame weekly GAM boxes because, as you can see, they are far too large. I'm looking to refine those areas down. So that's what I've got first and foremost for that weekly time frame, and I'm looking to identify the performance of that weekly 50 MA. So price broke above the weekly 50 MA, and of course we're looking to reject it. And now my anticipation is that I now have the range for price to then trade back down towards that weekly 50 MA before the rejection back up towards the upside. So as we start to refine those areas down, if I place this higher time frame weekly GAM box on all intervals for you to understand where now we're trading from on the daily time frame, you can understand here is where we are. So again, after that higher high, are we now looking to create the higher low before the higher high continuation? Now my question is, well, where am I going to be trading from in terms of point of interest? So the only area on the daily time frame is coming by way of this bearish engulfing candle that took out previous price action of most recent days. It's then left us with that daily GAM box for us to look to manipulate, refine that area down, and then trade from it. In addition to that, we then have our daily 50 MA, where it is only relevant on the daily time frame in terms of targets, and particularly from the aspect of, do I have any range now to trade short from this area, and where would my most restrictive area be on the daily time frame? And that would be by way of daily 50 MA. Again, how is the performance on that daily 50 MA? So we can see price broke above, came into the daily 50 MA, rejected the upside, created that higher high, price came back down to the daily 50 MA, pushed up, broke structure, continued to make higher highs. So my anticipation is then, after that higher high, do I have range for price to make what would seem to be a good trading pattern, or the most basic form of price action structure, make that higher low into the daily 50 MA before then making that higher high? Now I need to find the confluence in order to do so, and I have that daily order block where I was looking for price to then trade out of. When I refine that daily order block down, you understand exactly where we are. To the bottom left hand chart, we're now at the 4-hour time frame. Now this is where I'm looking at price action structure again in its most basic format, and as I always say to those members in FRGNT Mastery, that one line will do it. You can see how we have broken structure quite clearly to the downside on the DXY, looking for to break immediate structure points in terms of the bullish structure that we have on the weekly and on the daily. So of course we made higher highs from the area, expecting a potential higher low, failed to make a higher high, break of structure, that's the first low, so that's the first sign that we could potentially be looking to then turn around. And now after that low, looking for price to make the lower high before that lower low continuation. So that's the overall bias of the DXY. So you've got the higher time frame bias by way of higher time frame looking for higher highs and higher lows, and then of course in the immediacy as an intraday trader we're looking to identify those turnaround points, particularly as I've mentioned we're looking to short US dollar CAD. So I'm looking to identify breaks of structure on the intraday perspective to then take that short position on a US dollar cross pair. So if I go to the history page of the analysis that I posted a couple of days ago, so July the 6th 2026, US dollar CAD short bias, Q3 week 28 day 6, and here is that chart. You can see quite clearly a couple of days ago posted on US dollar CAD looking for a short scenario. So why does that make sense? If you compare the chart on US dollar CAD and on the DXY, you can see very similar things coming out of the market. US dollar CAD, of course, but with the DXY being the primary catalyst of that pair, you can see how we have traded on making higher highs and higher lows. However, intraday perspective, you can see particularly on that 4-hour time frame, much like the same on the 4-hour on the DXY. We've started to make that immediate turnaround, and in addition to that, we've had a break below that 4-hour 50 EMA. We can see the performance of that 4-hour 50 EMA price was holding above it. Once we've broken below, we've made that first low, looking to make the lower high for the lower low continuation. Then when you start to refine all those areas down on the top left-hand chart, you can see the 50-minute time frame. Look how price action has developed. So not only are you using intraday perspective to understand that, you then have the basis to understand why we are turning around on US dollar CAD potentially from an intraday perspective bias. And you can see we're trading out of that higher time frame point of interest on the daily time frame, but we have daily order block. So that's what we have. Now, if I bring you to the live price action and charts, it is, of course, old data. I am traveling. I'm away from my desk. Therefore, I'm not really updating as and when it happens. I figured I'll do this now before I get busier throughout the day, clear my charts off and see what is ready throughout the rest of the day. So a couple of days ago, the position was taken on US dollar CAD. From that higher time frame point of interest, you can see what I was showing you before price had already developed. 4-hour order block. That 4-hour order block is a refined area from the daily time frame, bottom right hand chart. If I zoom out all the way, you can understand why I was looking to identify a position in that area. It is the only daily order block in and around this area that is valid. Price then came into the area, and of course bullish into the area on all time frames, but that's why we're looking for price to be turning around on the lower time frames initially before getting involved. Weekly time frame, there isn't too much there available in terms of confluence to take the position, aside from, like on the DXY, a tremendously large weekly order book. That is not on the chart because I wanted to keep the chart nice and clean, but just so you can see the illustration, there is the weekly order block there on US dollar CAD. That, of course, looking to first and foremost refine that area down and then take a position from it. In addition to that, the other reason why it's off the chart is because I don't want to fully commit to short positions just because we are in an older time frame gam box, particularly because the DXY is emitting signs of bullishness. And as we know, with everything going on in the world in terms of economics, the DXY will always, in my opinion, now this is just simply based on opinion, not chart analysis, the US dollar CAD is the DXY is definitely going to be acting in favor of its own currency when looking to instigate wars. So that's pretty simple. The US dollar would not be looking to instigate wars if it's not in the benefit of increasing that bullishness of the DXY. It's just simple basis of why certain countries do certain things. So we'll leave that for another day and another topic. So you understand the reason why we were looking for short positions on a US dollar cross pair. US dollar CAD looked good thus far on the 4-hour time frame, and then what I'll do, I'll bring your attention to the 15-minute time frame on the top left-hand chart. You can understand, has price developed? So I'm looking at identifying simple breaks of structure, most basic format. We can understand that we had made higher highs. At some point, this could have well been a higher low for a higher high continuation. We failed to make a higher high, therefore this could well have been the first sign that a low in the market was created. And it's down to us to understand, well, what's going on in the immediacy. Has a new low been created? In terms of intraday perspective and new day price action and chart analysis, yes, we've broken immediate structure points. However, we can do one better. Price came back up into an older 15-minute gam box and then finally created that lower low in the market. So as you can see, price has now developed into a short bias scenario where I'm looking for price to gravitate back up to the order block that caused that break of structure before looking for a short potential short to the downside. So what we can see, price came up into that 15-minute order block. It wasn't respected, therefore I moved it over to the left-hand side. However, as a result of being still in the daily, as a result of being still in the 4-hour order block, that price had failed to break and close above, the 4-hour point of interest was still very much so a valid point that I wanted to be shorting from. Therefore, I was looking for identification on the lower time frames to take a short position if I felt it made sense. Now, what we had here, DXY, 2:15 in the afternoon, was the confluence for why I took that short position. So if I have another double check, it was Monday the 6th. First and foremost, when that position was executed. If we go over to Monday the 6th, we had, this should be it here, Monday the 6th, 2:15, we had a very subtle clear in the market where price was holding at a level, and we finally had a 50-minute candle closure below a point in the market that price was failing to do so. So here, despite the overall structure, despite price actually coming into this 15-minute order block and then giving signs of weakness from that, I still look to identify some confirmation before looking to take, in my opinion, what was quite an aggressive short position on US dollar CAD. You can see how an area in the market was created. So we had high created, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, confirmed. So this is still the structure point in the market. However, in terms of immediacy, particularly on the 1 minute and the 5 minute time frame, this was a key break of structure, meaning that I now have the confluence that the DXY is ready to turn around as a result of coming into this 15-minute order block. And we've now had that subtle break of structure, and you can see price came back up after that low created, lower high for the lower low continuation on the DXY. Similarly, US dollar CAD, it didn't give the same break of structure in my opinion, but because I had the confluence coming from the DXY, and trading US dollar CAD short was essentially me looking for signs for the DXY to give short signals, that is why that trade was executed. It was held overnight on Monday night, and then yesterday that took profit yesterday afternoon, as you can see here at 4:15 in the afternoon, 7th of July, 2026. So that's just a quick breakdown of the only position that I've taken this week. As I've said, it's been quite a slow couple of months, to be honest, because essentially that's why we trade, to not have to stay at the charts all day and have the opportunity to pretty much enjoy your life by doing some technical analysis, and being able to execute positions off of your phone if you so please, or if you're looking to travel with your laptop, then of course that is also a way that you're able to take benefits of trading if you know what you're doing. So that's a quick breakdown. Now I'll get on and mark the charts for the rest of the day, and then essentially do what I've been doing for the most recent couple of months, and just trading on the go as and when an alert goes out. So I'll be going through the DXY, US dollar CAD, AU, EU, UJ, GCAD, probably not, as that is just pushing continuously with no real signs of pullback. GU and GJ for the day, so stay tuned for those, and I will talk to you guys very soon. All the best. Take care. Ciao.